This cycle's DePIN winner, they're putting everything on chain. Let's chat. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Episode 18 of the Alpha Show. Before we get started, as always, you want all the data and all the insights that I use every single day to figure out what's going on. My day job at Lunar Crush as CEO and co-founder. Get your 25% off. Alpha 25. Make it happen. All right. What are we talking about tonight? You guys might remember these guys. Internet Computer, ICP. The big promise early on was compute on the blockchain. This was the replacement, the AWS replacement, the cloud replacement, the GCP replacement, or, you could say just done better on Web3. And I want to talk about these guys. There's a lot here. I would say it's pretty developer heavy. There's really some interesting stuff that's happening over on this chain. They have been building throughout this bear market, and there's some really cool stuff that they've done. It's been a minute since I've really looked at what's going on with ICP, and I'm pretty impressed with what I've done in some of the research that I've saw. So, transactions, it's all about speed, and they want to be the entire tech stack. They want to be the entire IT stack, not just like a governance or the blockchain layer. They want your entire app on their blockchain, and that's their promise. And even though we're in this kind of DePIN narrative, listening to these guys talk, I think it's pretty interesting because they're talking more about being compute replacement, and they're thinking about the market in a much, I would say, much larger way than just being a part of the Web3 community. Obviously, they're built in the community that, it brings, I think, a lot of attention, a lot of marketing to be a part, to be a top 25 by market cap cryptocurrency. But you can really see, and I think they have like a more methodical approach to what's happening. And I like that. I like to see that out of a founding team, or, so I think it was Dominic was his name, who I was listening to, and he seemed very methodical about what they were trying to do. Even, thinking about people like Polygon, paying $20 to $30 million to partner with Starbucks. Hopefully, that's a huge outcome for them. But that's also a pretty expensive way to acquire a customer, and how sustainable is that was really what he was thinking about in his approach. So not a knock on Polygon, just two different ways, I think, to grow a business in this space. And so really it's all about these transactions. So they're calling this ETH equivalent transactions. So just a lot more computational power that's happening. You can follow the blocks. Here's your price point for smart contract memory, gigabytes per year. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what like an S3 bucket, cost. I think it's like parts of a cent. So I'm not sure how competitive this is off the bat. Looking kind of through what they've done here and what they're leading with, I think it's always important, as we talk about these narratives, are some of the projects that have been around for a while, are they approaching the market this time around in a little bit of a different way? And I think it's okay for these projects to be reinventing themselves in a way, because a lot of times, it's being too early is also being wrong. I think the cool part, though, about what happens in Web3 is that you have a lot of longevity in this space, especially if you've got a high market cap, if you've got a foundation, if you've got developers building on top of you. So you are going to see people stay and stick around for a long time and just kind of continue to reinvent their branding, their marketing. So blockchain as a service, they do have a nice kind of spin here on identity. And I think, but their spin is to try and kind of be everything all in one on this blockchain. Obviously, identity is a big piece of that. Not sure how far really that they're taking it there, but if you're trying to interact with a dApp on their network, that's a potential real world asset dApp, and maybe you need to get access to a location or something, you're going to need your actual identity out there. But I think they're really kind of saying, now there's just like an anonymous or a doxed login for all these dApps, and it's all working as one internet computer. I also like this idea that it's like, it is just it's a computer, a big, large computer on the internet. And I like the fact that it's named that as well. So pretty cool stuff here. You definitely kind of dive into the site. There's a lot going on from that standpoint. Looking at, I like that they kind of show all the active node machines that are out here. So you can actually go and see where across the world there's the providers and how many nodes that they're running. They do have something that's pretty interesting for, being based, I think, out of Switzerland and being in Europe, versus some of us back in the US here. There's different types of requirements and regulations for things like GDPR and where data is hosted. And so by being a data or a compute provider or being an infrastructure provider, they do have options if you're a developer to house the data within the nodes based on the jurisdictions that you need to be a part of. And I thought that was pretty cool as well, because they're thinking ahead for not just crypto oriented or kind of hardcore degen crypto folks. It's like, hey, move fast, break tons of things, which is also, again, it's not knocking that. I'm saying that's one way to grow, and that works for a lot of people. But this is also a different way to think about it, to say, hey, we're going to really think and be a little bit more mindful about some of the regulation that's out there. And that might bring some Web 2 folks into the door for these guys. And maybe, they could be picking developers away from different places than, other blockchain communities. It's like, hey, we're not going to fight for developers from Avalanche and Polygon and BNB. We're going to fight for developers from Google and Amazon and Microsoft. So pretty interesting approach there. So pretty cool. Definitely come check out, some of the data that they've got on here. They've got a lot. It's really easy to navigate as well. It's all run through DeFinity, which is the foundation, and 1,600 employee publications, a lot of sites, like patents that are part of what's going on. A pretty big team, a really big team here. They're also hiring if you're looking for a job out there. I didn't see too much about the actual foundation and the treasury itself of what they're holding. I know that they do have this grants program here. They seem kind of very specific, or they seem maybe like even like a little, I could say like a little bit more picky in a good way about, the grants that they are giving out. It sounded like they're pretty vocal about finding the right people and having the customer acquisition costs for their developers to be very low compared to a lot of the other things that are out there, and the cost being low. And I think, there's probably some grants that get you up on your feet. I mean, it's the same model as, Amazon and AWS and GCP and Azure, is to, hey, we need to give you guys some grants in order to get started. And then once you're on our infrastructure, you're kind of hooked. There's a, pretty high cost to switching. When you're trying to move cloud providers, it's very difficult unless you have a super high quality development team that, runs like purely on compute and can migrate you, in a couple hours over the weekend. So, but those are few and far between. You're looking at the ecosystem. This is where I think the last time that I saw this, I don't even think there were 100 projects that were on here. And so it's cool to see a couple hundred projects. And when you really think across the entire ecosystem, and you get a lot of traditional VCs like ragging on, different like ecosystems for Web3 and like, oh, tell me a project, it's not being built. It's like, there's hundreds of projects being built on here. And all you really need is one Google, one WhatsApp, one Instagram to really prove out that this thing is all working. And so there's some actually pretty cool and interesting projects that are on here. I like that they also, for some of these, as you're scrolling through here, you'll see like the number of users that are part of it, like 80,000 users. That's no slouch. 55,000 users, 200,000 users on some of these things that are getting started, that are building completely on chain. And these things are actually working and you can interact with them. And I want to just touch on that a little bit of like, when you think about the market and you're thinking about, speculation of a market, it's not necessarily that something is completely and 100% delivered. It's this idea that, hey, like this, we all are collectively thinking that, DePIN or compute in a decentralized way is going to be a very big catalyst or a massive market. Like think about just, cloud in general. It's just a huge market, probably, almost $1 trillion market that's out there. And ICP and Internet Computer seems to be the top project the largest project that's disrupting that huge market. And so that's where the speculation comes from, a little bit of, hey, like, this is going to be a big market. Who's building in that market? Oh, these people are building that market. Oh, they seem to be in the lead. And like, that's the end of the discussion, and that's the end of the speculation. So I think that's kind of where we're at a little bit with, hey, these guys are very, very, far out ahead with the market cap, but also like there are a lot of decent projects that I saw in here. I did see this kind of gold DAO, which was pretty cool. Governs a gold token, but a fungible token allowing fractional gold ownership. Sorry, just can't speak tonight. And so this is actually really cool. So you can actually buy their token, and then the gold is stored as a real world asset in a Swiss vault. I think that's amazing. You don't even have to touch the gold in order to get access to it. You can see it says running ICP, and they've got some pretty cool stuff going on. So it's like, that's just a very simple implementation. Obviously, it seems like utilizing and putting something completely on chain for something that's kind of like online, offline, and light touch. It seems like maybe this company and these developers were like, oh, this is this is what I want to be building on for that. And it seems to be a good fit for them. And so there, you can see it doesn't need to be these massive ecosystem, massive dApp plays. We don't need to completely disrupt all of social media with every big thing that we're going after. I really like these onesie twosie things that actually work, and they are finding value in what's going on. And the way that ICP is actually working here with their nodes is that it is gasless for all of these, and then there's subnets that are a part of it. And what's happening is that there's a governance layer, and then the ICP is staked, which I think it's a couple $1 billion staked in this DAO, which would technically make it like the largest DAO in existence. And then the smart contracts or the providers here in these dApps are actually paying for these cycles, and those cycles are being used to pay for the compute. So they're actually paying to use this. And so just similarly to how an actual, compute provider or a cloud provider would work, is that you're actually paying for it. But the interesting part here is that there's governance and there's voting, and there's a sovereign like piece to this here where the nodes are decentralized. And so, you're paying for something and to keep the entire network running and up. And I think that's a great model. It's kind of like Scale from last week we were talking about a little bit, to have a gasless chain. It's like, oh, people just pay to use it. And that's how it works, because it works really well for them. So pretty interesting there. Talking, finally about the price action here, looking at this, 3-month chart again, like this is already a pretty big market cap that's out there. But again, it's still only 7 billion compared to 400 billion that is Ethereum. There are also I heard them talking a little bit about Bitcoin layer 2 interoperability and potentially some bridging that could go on. So I think that there could be some interesting inflows happening there. I bet they, with how they were talking about Bitcoin, I bet they're looking at the narrative there. I bet they're looking at Bitcoin as an L2. Maybe they're looking at, what's happening with runes and thinking, hey, how do we be a part of that? Because we think we have a great fit for it. So there's something that might be going on there. That's just me wearing my tinfoil hat. But again, looking out at the year, started to run some dips that are out there. The markets are super liquid. This is one of the more heavily traded tokens that are out there. It's on all the big exchanges. For me, looking at the social media aspect of it, like that's how I found that. I was looking back at Internet Computer again. I was like, oh, socials are popping off. Looking at this price on the 6 month, compared to a lot of other stuff out there, it's done really, really well. Obviously, they're in the DePIN narrative, but that doesn't necessarily mean that anything's going to win. And even looking at, comparing them, to some of the other layer ones that I talked about, Arbitrum, Polygon, some of these things are down year to date, which seems wild. People are talking about we're in this like massive euphoria that's happening, and like we're at an all-time top. It's like some of these things are down, like almost on like the year. It's nuts. So, have done really, really well. Obviously we're talking about all of these interactions up big time, number of posts created, we're looking at 300, 400 posts created back in October. now we're consistently hitting that, at least 1,000 to 2,000, upwards of almost 3,700 posts created, number of creators. So this is number of individual people that are now talking about internet computer. And so you can see that community growing. And that's what we like to see here at Lunar Crush, is that groundswell of community over time, compounding. You really only talk about the projects that you're bag holding. You're not like, if you see someone out on X or someone out on TikTok talking about something, they're probably bag holding, or they just got paid for it. Right. So this is actually, talking about myself here. I actually don't own any ICP. So I might go get some now, because I'm pretty interested in what's going on here. But when we pull up all of these interactions in the post and everything that's out there, that means that there's more people, more interest, more people buying. And that's how we really create that kind of social arbitrage, is what we're looking for. And then finally here, I like to look at the alt rank, which is the combination of market volume, social volume, and then price performance versus all other tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies that we hold. It's really interesting because you want to be number one. You want to be the top alt rank that's out there. And it's kind of moving down into this range. It's just eclipsing that 10 range. Looking at like the 1 week here, we haven't really got down there, but you can see normally as price moves down, alt rank moves up. It's a pretty sensitive indicator here for price being about a third of what's happening there. But the alt rank is going down as the price was kind of going down. That means that social activity is going up. It means that something is kind of brewing here. It means that, when the market is kind of moving, this could be more of kind of a call option on the broader market with what's going on. So as the broader market starts to move up, it looks like ICP is kind of pinned to that in a kind of its own leveraged way. So pretty interesting stuff here. I'm excited about these guys. I'm excited to see the other dApps that they get building. It's compute on the blockchain. So thanks y'all for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. That was episode 18.